Dudes and dudettes, how are you guys? This is Chazzy and welcome back to The Mixer, the segment on this channel where I give you guys all sort of detailed analyses on all walks of life. I'll talk about people, places, animals, food, sports, traveling, the whole 9 yards. Hence why it's called The Mixer, because I like to mix things up in this huge playlist here with over 200 videos at this point. And I wish I could get to 300, but that's probably going to take a while. It's going to be a bit before I can make it there, and change this smaller part of the intro. This is gonna be quite something to do in the future, put the stuff in a thing and whatnot there, bro. And now today I'm going to be discussing something related to geography, which is a video that I've actually done a long time ago, maybe 2 or 3 years ago at this point. So I'm remaking it now. I'm going the Hollywood route and making a legacy sequel of sorts, like in the last video where I talked about legacy sequels in Hollywood, right? Today I'm going to be discussing with you guys, and I forgot to turn my clock on here, my timer, to see how long I'm going to record. It's starting now, but the video's already here, so let's continue, right? Today we're going to be talking about a very specific pole of inaccessibility, possibly the most famous or infamous pole of inaccessibility on the planet, In case you guys don't know, a pole of inaccessibility is the farthest location or the most difficult to reach location in a given landmass, sea, or topographical feature area, So it starts from a given boundary and then it's relative to a given criteria, right? So like a geographical criterion might be, for example, it marks a location that's the most challenging to reach, according to that criterion there. So basically it's a point where it's very, very, very difficult for you to, go there and exist and do things that you normally could not in another place and whatnot there, But yeah, it's basically the place that's most distant from the coastline, right? So that's essentially from the land all the way into the open sea, So it's the furthest point from landmass, way into the ocean there. So the further you go away from shore, the more this pole of inaccessibility becomes, a pole of inaccessibility, if that makes sense, it's the third of it. So yes, and now the furthest point, in the body of water represents a very deep innate fear for me because I have thalassophobia. I talked about this before, right? But actually I talked about this in my spin-off channel, Chazzy Plus, right, where I discuss my biggest fear, So the further that I get away from shore and, more towards the ocean, the more terrified I feel for my own existence, especially because what I'm going to be talking about specifically is the oceanic point of inaccessibility, right? Also known as Point Nemo. Oh, Point Nemo, man. This place right here, even though it's land, would represent such a freaking trigger for me because here are the coordinates in case you guys ever want to go there, for some dumb reason you want to go and visit the most isolated place on the planet. No exaggeration at all. It's literally the furthest point from land in any place, It's like it's in the middle of the sea and there's nothing but ocean in all directions, man. It's freaking insane, right? So now it's located in the South Pacific Ocean specifically, and the thing with Point Nemo is that it is so freaking isolated and so far away from land and so difficult to get to that usually the only humans who are close to it are the astronauts who pass above on the International Space Station. They're the closest humans to freaking Point Nemo, man, and they're in space, right? Point Nemo is actually equally distant from the 3 closest land masses, right? So, which are roughly about 1,670 miles away in all directions, right? So you have, for example, I'm gonna read from the script, right? It's down here, the Pandora Island of the Dushi Island Atoll, right? And then there's that's to the north. Then there's Mutu Nui, right, adjacent to Easter Island, which is in the northeast. Then we have Mahir Island, near the much larger Spindley Island, which is to the south. And it's off the coast of Antarctica, by the way. And now the exact coordinates of Point Nemo, even the ones that I put here on screen, right? Now, no, sorry. The exact coordinates of Point Nemo depend on what the exact coordinates of the islands themselves are, even though it's a landmass, it doesn't really shift or anything, right? So, but I don't know, man, it's freaking crazy, and there's more for me to discuss and break it down a little bit. But before that, let's take a look at some photos here, because believe it or not, there are actually photos of Point Nemo. It's crazy, right? And those photos do illustrate just how isolated it is, man, because it's crazy. I mean, there's Man, like, there's like no regular maritime or air traffic, you know, because the closest routes for those things are freaking 250 miles away. God, it is insane, man, you know. And it's funny because the antipode, how do I pronounce that? The antipode, you know, the opposite point of it, you know, the point on the planet that's diametrically opposite to it, you know, is actually located in the, I can't pronounce this, the Aktob region of Western Kazakhstan, you know, which is roughly, you know, 30 miles. I imagine this is southeast of the town of Shrubarkaduk. Such irrelevant information, man, but it's good to make the video keep going, right? And now this point here in the ocean is essentially lifeless. You know, there's barely any marine life at all because it's located within the South Pacific Gyre, right? I really hope I'm pronouncing these things correctly. You know, it's spelled G-I-R-E, you know, this right here, the South Pacific Gyre, Gyre, I don't freaking care, okay? It blocks nutrients from reaching this area here, which makes it very hard for marine life to actually flourish, you know? So being so far off from land, you know, makes it so it gets very little nutrient, you know, runoff from the coastal waters, right? So you're barely gonna see any fish and other marine life and birds, right? So that's what makes it even sadder. It's not just the most isolated point on Earth, right? The furthest away from land, it's also one of the most lifeless. So like you could be there and you will literally feel completely alone. Mr. Beast should do a challenge there. Look, I spent 10 days at Point Nemo, you know? He would probably go crazier than when he spent all that time in that, what's it called? The quarantine room, you know? What was it? I spent 100 days in self-isolation, quarantine, something, I don't know, he did something related to that, you know. So what I think would be really interesting about Point Nemo is that obviously scientists have been there to study, you know, because we know that it exists for starters, right? So people know about it, they know what it represents and how it contributes to the ecosystem, if anything at all. But imagine actually spending time there, you know, imagine actually taking time to isolate yourself there for a while to study other miscellaneous things, whether it's the weather patterns or the tide, or if there actually is, you know, any marine life around. Like, how do people come to this conclusion? They have to be there and stay for an extended period of time, you know? And even if you have a boat and you anchor it there, it's in the middle of the ocean, it's deep as hell. How far down does the anchor go? And like, there might not be marine life there present per se, but other marine life can come and swallow you alive. Maybe that's just me talking as a thalassophobe, you know, because it's in the middle of the ocean, man. Like, if I were to be put on this point here, like if I were to be teleported there at some point, I'd probably have a heart attack because I'd look around, there's literally just water, because land is so far away, you probably don't even see the silhouette of it. You don't even see the landmass in the distance, you know, covered by fog or something, man. Oh my God. I cannot. There's one more thing that I want to comment, and I'll read a little bit about the history of it, but before that, let's take a look at something else here. Maybe some more photos or even a video if there exists any. Very, very sad video of Point Nemo.
You look at the map and realize you finally arrived at the oceanic pole of inaccessibility, Point Nemo. A place that occupies 10% of the world's oceans. A place that's called a desert because of the almost complete absence of life. But it doesn't look as bad and scary as it sounds. Quite beautiful, in fact. It could even be the cleanest place in the world's oceans.
Point Nemo was first discovered and surveyed by this Croatian engineer back in 1992, and then many years later in 2022 he would recalculate the coordinates, you know, relative to other places, you know, using the digital chart of the world data, and it actually gave us much more, you know, a much more intricate location, and that's where people started to go and discover it for themselves, right? So now the point itself and the areas around it, because of this discovery, right, have attracted a lot of literary and cultural attention from around the world. And the thing is that the reason that it's called Point Nemo is because Latin is, in Latin, Nemo stands for nobody. You know, the movie Finding Nemo, where it actually translates to finding nobody if you go from Latin, right? So it's actually interesting. It's also a reference to Captain Jules Verne, you know, from 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, the book that was released back in 1870, published in 1870, right? Released this for movies and stuff. So now it's actually funny because this novel itself was actually a favorite of this Croatian engineer, so he's the one who actually coined the term in the first place, right? And it just kind of stuck. And it's interesting because way back in the day, back in in 1928, there was a short story called The Call of Cthulhu, which was published and actually took place, you know, in the fictional city of Rila, which is actually located in where Point Nemo is today, right? Even though the story itself was written 66 years before Point Nemo itself was even discovered, so that's kind of a crazy coincidence there, right? So, and of course, people associated with actually being where Cthulhu thrives, even though we all know it's not real and all that. So, and the wider area around Point Nemo was actually also known as a spacecraft cemetery because of the number of decommissioned satellites and space stations and other spacecraft that have actually crashed there intentionally. They have been made to fall there upon re-entering the atmosphere so they wouldn't hit other land masses and, you know, ships and other things, you know, and civilizations. So, you know, it lessens the risk of these spacecraft hitting habited locations, right? So that's what they use it. And even though it's essentially polluting the ocean, I mean, I don't really know what the criteria is. Maybe NASA needs to do this, you know. I guess polluting our planet is better than polluting space, just leaving the satellites there to float aimlessly out there, you know, but whatever, you know. And fun fact, the International Space Station, you know, the ISS, is actually planned to crash in Point Nemo in 2031. So if you're ever in the area, you know, if you happen to be close by or you want to make a note of it, you know, stake out the place for a year just to see if you can see the satellite fall down. But be careful for it not to crash on you, you know. That would be quite a sight. Imagine you're in the middle of the ocean and you just see a huge satellite fall into the water, you know? Probably think it's an alien invasion or something. But I think that's essentially it, guys. I think I can wrap the video up here. I'm sorry if I seemed a little off, you know, and I'm reading directly from the script. It's because my head isn't really in the right space lately to even make videos at all. So I'm trying to give you guys content and to kind of rush through these last few videos here before something happens, you know. There's going to be a big change in my personal life that you guys are going to know about, possibly in my other channel, Chazzy Plus, where I talk about, you know, more personal things and whatnot. So you guys will know about the change there and you will see the change happening here. But if you don't watch that video on Chazzy Plus, you're not going to understand what's going to happen, you know. But I'm still trying to give you guys stuff here, you know, and hopefully you'll enjoy it and watch it all the same, right? And I guess that's it for now, guys. That is it. Let me know in the comments below what you think about this video. I know that it wasn't the best in terms of, you know, the quality and the script reading and whatnot, but at least I tried. So if you happen to enjoy this video anyway, please go ahead and give it a like and also subscribe to my channel because I release videos every single week, or at least I'm trying to. And while you're at it, hit the notification bell too so you can know exactly what time I upload, and it's all good. It is all good. Oh, subscribe to my other channels as well. You got Chazzy Plus and Chazzy Cast for podcasts and Chazzy Cast BR for podcasts in Portuguese, and it is all good. So that's it. And speaking of which, this is Chazzy signing out for now. And as always, I will see you guys in the next video. Roll the outro screen.